Please join me in welcoming Dr. Sebastian Gorka.
Thank you, Chairwoman Lila. It's a real pleasure to be here tonight to see standing room only. Tonight, I'm going to keep my comments short. It's a real honor to be here. I'm just going to touch upon a handful of topics and then open the floor to your questions. So what I'm going to talk about is, who is Donald J. Trump really? Because that's what everybody asks me. Then, what really happened on November the 8th, 2016? And what happened when we moved into the White House? And what was it like to work in the White House? And then I'll talk a little bit about what your role will be in 2018. Okay, so who is Donald Trump? Everybody wants to know, what's he really like? Well, guess what? If you've had a pulse and been breathing for the last 30 years and switched on a television set or opened a newspaper or looked on the internet, you know Donald Trump. Okay? He is, what you see is what you get. It's exactly who he is. Unlike most people who work on this hill, there is no public Trump and private Trump. You know what I mean, right? You go to those fancy cocktail parties in Georgetown or Adams Morgan, and everybody, you know, the second they shake your hand, what are they doing? They do the DC handshake. You go out to shake their hand, and they're already looking over your shoulder to see, is there anybody else more important in the room, right? When a camera comes into the room, they put on that Washington grimace, right? That fake smile. The public persona versus the private. Guess what? This guy from Queens, what you see is what you get. Behind closed doors, when it was just the two of us in the Oval Office, is exactly the same as whether he's in front of 60,000 people in the stadium or on his reality TV show or addressing Congress. It is unfiltered. It is the Donald. Let me give you how I knew this from the get-go. First time I met him, summer of, 2015, I get a phone call from a guy called Corey. Never heard of Corey Lewandowski. And he says, candidate Trump is preparing for the Republican national security debate this fall, and he'd like somebody to help him with national security issues. Would you be willing to come to New York? I said, sure. So I flew to New York, went to Trump Tower, went up to Mr. Trump, candidate Trump's office. And it was just the president, future president, literally sitting across a desk closer than Lila is, and then Corey in the corner. And we just started riffing on national security issues, from civil war to nuclear weapons to the Middle East, you name it. And halfway through it, he just stopped mid-sentence, looked at Corey, and said, I like this guy, let's hire him. Okay? So it's decisiveness, yes, it's directness, it's raw. That's who he was as head of the Trump giant corporation or as the president of the greatest nation on God's earth. Amen. What happened on November the 8th, 2016, I'll give you my interpretation. Now, don't take this personally, but it's a fact. Donald J. Trump was only accidentally the GOP candidate for president. Let's remind ourselves of the most trenchant fact about this individual. He is the first human being since 1776 to become the most powerful man in the world without ever holding public office or serving as a general in the U.S. Armed Forces. Now, why is that? Just think about the enormity of that fact. That is a testament to the reality that he is the quintessential anti-establishment candidate. He didn't owe anybody anything. Not on the left, not on the right. He is an antibody to the establishment that has so poorly served our nation for the last 30 years, whether it was on the right or whether it was on the left. Think about another question. Why did this man run for president? Do you think he did it for the money? Do you think he did it for the fame? He didn't need either of those. And look at what he's put up with. Just today we have this horrific story of his son's family being threatened by a potential anthrax attack. Luckily, it wasn't a biological or chemical agent, but this is what he's put up with, whether it's the media attacking his 10-year-old son or saying outrageous things about him and his family. This man is putting up with all of this for one very simple reason. He loves this country. If you want to understand Donald Trump, the best way to understand him, beyond, read the book, The Art of the Deal. Please read the book. You really will get a strategic insight into who the president is, but also understand that he is a melding. He's a melding of two things. He is the ultimate pragmatist. Think about it. The guy who was a billionaire salesman, realtor, crushing it in the toughest market in the world, New York real estate. Yeah? You can't look at the world through an ideological lens when you're doing real estate. Either it's worth X amount per square foot or it's not worth X amount per square foot. So he's a pragmatist who is at the same time a patriot, loves this country. And all he's doing, I tell you this with personal experience, working for him, all he is doing right now, all that he's putting up with, is for a very simple objective. He spent 50 years of his life, and you know what? I wish I had a quarter of his energy at the age of 47 that he has at the age of 71. That guy's impressive, very impressive. All he's doing is that he's taken what he has done for 50 years, which is a dedication to excellence. Whatever he touched, whether it was a golf course in Scotland, whether it was a skyscraper in America, whether it was a commercial product, excellence was the watchword. And he's taking that and just transmuting it, just transferring it to what? America. To get us back to being the first, the best in the world. That doesn't mean alone. This is one of the biggest misunderstandings. America first does not mean America alone. If you want to understand what it really means, read one thing. Read the Warsaw Address by Donald Trump. That one speech will, I predict, go down in history as one of the most consequential political speeches in modern times. And the essence of that speech is very simple, and don't forget where it was said. We worked very hard. The Poles didn't want to do this for various reasons, security and others. It was very important for us that he made that speech at the site of the Warsaw Uprising Memorial. Okay, very important. The president's speech in Warsaw was unequivocal. America is back. A world without American leadership is dangerous. But we are not here like some dastardly neocon cabal to invade other people's countries and invade them. That's un-American. This nation was born in a rebellion against imperialism. We don't do that. We don't invade other people's countries and try to impose our system upon them. It's un-American. But we are proud of our heritage. We are proud of being a Judeo-Christian nation. And if you share our Judeo-Christian values, whether you are Poland in Europe, or whether you are Israel in the Middle East, we will stand shoulder to shoulder with you.
That's right.
We will not impose our...
That's right.
We're not here to impose our way of life upon you, but if you wish to share in those values, we will be your friend. It's not an accident that three very senior members of the Trump administration, the chairman of the Joint Chiefs, the Secretary of Defense, and Chief of Staff, are all Marines. Not only are they all Marines, they come from the same Marine Corps division. Did you know that? Wow. And that division has an informal motto. Now, it's not being taken up officially as the Trump administration's motto, but I like to think it is. And that motto of that Marine Corps division is, no better friend, no worse enemy. That is America First. So, that's who he is. That's what happened at the election. And by the way, I'm not going to do a poll, but if you don't believe in God, you have no idea what happened on November the 8th. That was divine intervention. Let's look at the context. This is a man who was an outsider, didn't get support from the establishment. The establishment didn't want him, but he wipes the floor with 16 establishment candidates, and then proceeds to do what? Defeat a woman who had spent, unofficially, $1.4 billion on a position she thought was owed to her because of her gender and her last name. Not only that, that woman who'd spent almost $1.5 billion had the media in her pocket. Okay, apart from Sean on Fox, Washington Times and Breitbart, everybody else practically was in the tank. And just remember what the Huffington Post said on the day of the election and the New York Times. She has more than a 95% chance of winning on the day of the election. Oh, the sweet irony. So, despite all of that, he won. And that's proof positive. The man upstairs is helping us. So, what happened a few months later when we moved into the White House? An amazing day. I'm an American now, proud American, but 6 years ago I was, green card holder. I was an immigrant, a legal immigrant. And then I end up at 8 a.m. on the 21st of January walking around the West Wing. I mean, that's America.
Yeah.
That's America.
Yes.
But, let's be honest, what happened on January 20th? As a function of being an anti-establishment campaign, you are all so young. Let me see if anybody, has anybody seen the original, the crummy remake, the original Red Dawn? Good. If you haven't, tonight, stream it. Okay? The original Red Dawn with Patrick Swayze. Wolverines, right? That is a story about the Soviet Union and Cuba invading the United States. Great movie by John Milius, the guy that gave us Conan the Barbarian and Dirty Harry. And in that story, who remembers who defeated the Soviets? Yes, a bunch of high school students called the Wolverines with their dad's bolt-action rifle, right? Guess what? That was January the 20th. It was a band of merry men and women, a very small band, that moved into the West Wing to take over the largest organization in the world. Remember, if you add the armed forces, we are talking about millions of employees of the federal government. And as such, it was, I like to describe it, as the most leveraged hostile takeover in political history. And that's one of the reasons why 7 months later, after my immediate boss, Steve, decided to resign, I decided the best way to serve the president is to do so from the outside, where the swamp creatures are far weaker and where we can get a lot more done. So that's what happened on January the 20th, hostile leveraged takeover. But what's happened in the last 13 months? I mean, you know the track record. Yes, you hear the talking points. Hopefully you know them. But just let's remind ourselves. Look at the economy. The economy has been unleashed. For 8 years, President Obama couldn't once get 3% GDP growth rate. This president did it in 2 quarters already. Massive American companies are bringing literally billions of dollars back to America. Tens of thousands of jobs created by private industry. More than 2 million created in the last 12 months alone. Tax reform, the defeat of ISIS in terms of its caliphate, revitalization of our alliances, on and on and on. This is the track record that you would be proud of at the end of your second term as president, not your first year. That's what's possible if you have leadership and if you love this nation.
Yeah.
So, what's left to do? A lot. We need to have 7 years of President Trump from this day forward, and then 8 years of President Pence.
Yeah.
Who, by the way, and I've got to say this personally, as a child of people who escaped communist dictatorship, it's just, the words fail me. Yeah, I do this for a living. I talk for a living. Very rarely do words fail me. But to see CNN, MSNBC, the left-wing fake news industrial complex salivating over the chief of propaganda for the North Korean regime, a woman whose family runs a country where there are labor camps, where people are tortured because they have the wrong political beliefs, where according to left-wing NGOs, 10 million people are on the brink of starvation because of their regime. That's the left. That's like celebrating Himmler. That's like celebrating Goebbels. Yes? It's like going back to Walter Duranty, back in the 20s and 30s, the New York Times Pulitzer Prize winner, who was writing hagiographies about how great Stalin is and how superb communism is. We've returned to the age of Walter Duranty, despite the fact that I bumped into him on a daily basis. Mike Pence, the vice president, is probably one of the most honorable men this nation has ever seen. And the way he has been treated in the last week is absolutely abhorrent. I'll close before we do some Q&A on what the movement role is, what the ideological role of the president is, and what your role is. I like to describe the president as an icebreaker ship. You know those ships that are deployed to break through the permafrost ice caps, to open up shipping lanes. For more than a generation, this nation, and especially body politic, academia, and the media, was frozen solid in a stasis state of political correctness, where federal government would tell you who was allowed to take showers with your teenage daughter, right? Just insanity, political correctness gone mad. Along comes a man who owes nothing to that political correctness and just breaks through it like a sledgehammer, like an icebreaker. Does anybody know the mechanics of ice breaking? The ice breaking ship breaks a passage, but what happens next? If you don't keep that passage open, what happens? Around the bow, at the back of the ship, almost instantly, the ice will come back and re-knit and close that passageway again. You need to have a flotilla. You need to have ships immediately come in and keep that pathway open. Keep it free. It is our jobs now. It's not the establishment's jobs. I'm sorry, it's not going to be National Review that does it. Okay? I mean, you know, Crystal is, you know, when an alleged conservative tweets, I mean, this just blows my mind. When somebody who is allegedly a conservative tweets, in a choice between the deep state and President Trump, I choose the deep state. Well, then go and join some Maoist collective in Cambodia, why don't you?
Right, yeah.
Mr. Crystal, the services are no longer needed. Okay? So it's our job, especially your jobs, as young Republicans, to support the icebreaker ship. It's a really exciting time because now we have to clarify first things, first principles. What does it mean to be a conservative in the 21st century? What exactly is the role of government today? What is the role when it comes to new technologies? What is the role in national security when we have all kinds of new threats? What is the role in economics? Is the Laffer curve good enough? Do we just, dust off Hayek and Mises? Or is it more complicated? This is the heavy lifting we have to do today, and there's some great minds out there, but you need to be a part of it as well. And most important of all, I'd like to engage all of you, if you wish. I'd like to make you all members of Team Trump. I don't have any membership cards to give out, but if you wish, you will be anointed as members tonight. And do something for the president and for this nation. Push back on the lies.
Yes.
Don't get aggressive, don't get on the soapbox, but whether it's at the water cooler, whether it's over margaritas tonight, whatever it is, okay? When somebody starts trotting out tired talking points from the left, just ask them a few solid questions. When they call the president and his team racists, white supremacists, and anti-Semites, just tell them, you do know, right, that the president's grandchildren are Orthodox Jews. You do know that, yes? Right? I mean, it's just push back, because they're all lies. This man, I can tell you, hand on heart, if a good book was here, I'd swear on it. He doesn't have a racist bone in his body. And the most important thing, the most important message you can send out there is that this man loves America. And most important of all, and I know this from talking to him, this is the stunning thing about him, after all he's been through and will go through. This man only wants two things for everybody in this country. Not in this room, in this country. He wants every American to be safe. And he wants every American and their families to prosper, irrespective of who they voted for. That's who Donald Trump is. He doesn't care if you voted for Hillary, or if you wanted to Bernie to win, or if you stayed at home. If you're an American legally here in America, you deserve this government protecting you, and you deserve this government getting out of the way of the economy that defeated Hitler and the Soviet Union, unleashing America's might again, whether you've got a D behind your name or an R behind your name. So that's Donald Trump. Okay. Thanks for watching. If you want to see the rest of my videos, please subscribe to the Rebel Media YouTube channel. And don't forget to follow me on Twitter at Seb Gorka. That's SEBGORKA. And if you like this video, please share it on Facebook and Twitter, because the fake news industrial complex has been lying for far too long. And with your help, we can get the truth out.